in 1923 we have a crucial moment for both Hitler and the party, and it was their ill-fated attempt to seize power with the Munich beer hall putsch. Would you be able to, unpack what this movement was and the effect that it had on Hitler and the Nazi Party?
Yes, I mean, this was really, remember, after 4 or 5 years of growth of the party under his leadership, because he took over as leader fairly quickly. And as I said, there was plenty of competition. The main competition on the streets was the Communist Party and left-wing parties. And he had built up a large following. His group was now becoming one of the biggest, one of the most popular, best attended. More than that, they had recruited many ex-soldiers, and they had formed this paramilitary protection group, which we know as the Brown Shirts, the SA, in other words. And so it had already, after 4 or 5 years, become a very large and very significant power, albeit a sort of street power at this stage. But the year before, Hitler heard about a chap in Italy called Mussolini. He couldn't believe it. He said, "What? Mussolini just gathered his followers, marched on the government and took over?" Yes, he did. So Hitler thought, well, if he could do it, I can do it. And basically that's what happened. So one day he and his large group of 1,000 stormed into a public meeting. He stormed in, pulled out his gun, fired a shot into the ceiling. Everybody stopped, as you can imagine. And he declared that there was now a revolution. And someone there, a chap, his name was Professor Muller, actually. And he actually recorded the event. And I just think it's worth noting the way that what he said. He said, when Hitler spoke, it was a rhetorical masterpiece that totally transformed the audience. Now, when you think about the circumstances, Hitler must have had some amazing X factor in his ability, his oratory powers, because if you imagine yourself in that situation, you wouldn't be thinking of to be impressed by someone's speech skills, but he was. And so anyway, from there, it was decided that they would take on the Munich government, and several thousand of him and his followers, several thousand of them decided to march on the city hall. Now, this is where a very, very good example of luck. It couldn't be anything else, could it? Because he was in the front, in the middle. On one side, one of his colleagues, Richter. On the other side was Goring. When they were confronted by the local police force, armed police force, who opened fire. Richter, on his left-hand side, dropped dead. Goring, on his right-hand side, was shot in the leg. 15 other people were shot dead. But Hitler, nothing. Okay, so that's pretty remarkable luck. But that was a continuation, if I can quickly refer back to it, to the First War. This is luck. This business of luck is always a question, well, what really is luck? And to be honest, because I was going to write this book, based on, half of it anyway, based on luck, I thought, do we have an interpretation of luck? And I did actually find one in Oxford Dictionary, of course. It says that luck is success that seems to happen by chance. It's the arbitrary distribution of events or outcomes. Sounds like a good definition, a very clear definition. And if we think about it for a moment, if I can, just refer back through history, it also struck me that luck had played such a large part in many big moments in history. I haven't got time to go into the full detail, but just a quick reminder, even in the great famous date of 1066, William the Conqueror, we think of him as the incredibly great soldier. Actually, he only conquered by luck, because King Harold, who had a big army waiting for him, had to march up north to fend off the Vikings. half his army was killed off. And by the time he came back, William had already landed on the beach. Harold wasn't really in a position to defend him. So that was luck. Even in the great Spanish Armada, we tend to think Francis Drake, yes, he was a great sailor, no doubt about it. But it wasn't. That's not how the Spanish Armada was defeated. It was defeated by bad weather. A storm brewed up. We're all sailing ships. They were scattered and lost. And that was pure luck. Okay, so you get my point. And it also, even in politics, recently, fairly recently, one Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, famously says that it really is only a matter of events, dear boy. That's what determines for a Prime Minister. And if you think of today, of recent events, yes, you could say luck played its part in recent Prime Ministers' careers, I think. So I just wanted to really throw open this idea that I'm quite prepared to discuss what luck really is, but I think these are the kind of examples that I'm referring to when I say that Hitler was extremely.
Yeah, I can certainly see it within some of these events that luck's playing a massive role in Hitler's successes and his ability to capitalize on them and capitalize on situations as well. And looking at the next big situation that hits Germany and particularly the world in 1929, Hitler is able to capitalize on the Wall Street crash. Massive financial implications not only for America but the rest of the world due to America's financial power in the post-World War I period. So, what effect does this Wall Street crash have on Germany, and how is Hitler able to capitalize on it?
Well, it did have. I actually make the argument that this was the cause of his rise to power, and therefore, you could say the cause of the war, because it was all happening in America, center of world finance, of course, and it became the financial crisis. We've seen them recently as well, and it was a collapse of economies. Now, this is only about 10, 11 years after the end of the First War. Germany, which had obviously suffered economically after the First War, had been in poverty, really. And that was one reason why Hitler's party was proving very popular during those years. And he had built up his support. Yes, but the communists on the other side had built up their support too. The difference that this made was that Hitler was able to, the effect in Germany, first of all, was that people who were just beginning to recover from the effects of the end of the First War, just beginning to recover, suddenly it was this massive slump. And so people, again, were confronted in an instant, a weakened economy with unemployment which soared up to more than 3 million people. And so they looked around very quickly for answers. And I would have often debated with people about this. But do you know, I think it's only natural human reaction. If you are in extreme poverty, if things have completely collapsed around you, you will look around for a quick answer, for a clear answer, for a simple answer. This is what Hitler offered people. The first thing he did, and I think this is what we would look for again, to blame. Who's to blame? Well, for Hitler, that was simple. He was able to identify who was to blame. It wasn't the American government, the national economics. This was a great opportunity for him to point a finger at what he had already been saying was one of Germany's big problems. And that was the weak government that had surrendered at the end of the First War, had created this German feeling of shame, of defeat. And who were these people who had done that? Well, they were Jews. The Jews were in the government, were part of the government, were all Bolsheviks as far as he was concerned. And he said it's quite simple. That's why Germany is in the mess it's in at the moment. And not only that, but the only people that have prospered since the end of the war are the Jews. So it was easy for him to target these two groups, the Jews and the Bolsheviks. And so for those reasons then, all of his arguments that he had been making were reinforced by this economic collapse. It was an ideal moment for him, but it was entirely nothing to do with him that it happened. So that was difficult.
And like you said there, and we previously touched on his oracy skills, to be able to clearly communicate to the people exactly what they want to hear allows, as you just mentioned, for him to capitalize that. And as we've just been talking about, this starts the process of a Hitler's rise to power, Germany's collapse into a dictatorship. And then there were two events which really kind of finalized this collapse, which is the Reichstag fire and the death of President Hindenburg. And this kind of allows Hitler to become a very powerful figure within Germany. And how does he set about using this newfound power in 1934?